All right, buckle up, everybody, because this Singapore Grand Prix is already shaping up to be a wild ride.
Yeah, I mean, the Marina Bay Street Circuit is always a spectacle with the lights and everything, but this year feels different.
It really does.
Like the teams themselves weren't quite ready for the chaos.
Totally. And clearly you are, though, because you've been digging through everything, English and Spanish, articles, videos. You even sent me that analysis from that superfan blog, which I loved, by the way.
Well, with a race this unpredictable, you really do need to get every single angle on it,
Especially when you've got,
McLaren on top of the timesheets and Red Bull looking like they'd rather be anywhere else.
I mean, let's talk about McLaren for a second, because this whole mini DRS saga is nuts. I mean, they were killing it in Baku, and then bam, banned it. It's like like a spy trail or something. How did they even manage to pull that off in the first place?
Well, clever engineering. That's how, the FIA called it a violation of the spirit of regulations. But essentially, they created this wing that was designed to flex at high speeds, and it basically gave them this mini DRS boost on the straights.
So sneaky. But then, here's the thing. Even without their trick wing, they're still crazy fast here in Singapore. So what's the deal with that?
Well, Norris is completely in the zone, consistently fast, very comfortable with the car. Piastri had that early hiccup in FP1, but he's found his groove again, and, he thrives under pressure.
He does. He's got that winning feeling in his back pocket. Okay, so we're talking about potential winners here. But can we ignore Ferrari? They always seem to find this, extra gear, especially Leclerc on a street circuit.
Yeah, Leclerc's definitely the wild card. I mean, he's quick, but they just haven't quite mastered the balance of the car yet. So they were fast on the straights, but then they just struggled with the traffic in the corners.
Which, on a track like this, so tight, is a killer.
Exactly. Overtaking is just so difficult here that if you can't nail those qualifying laps and get a good starting position, you're in for a very long race. But here's the kicker.
Ooh, tell me more.
They've introduced this new flexible front wing.
Ooh, very interesting. Tell me, is that even legal?
It's a little bit of a gray area, but it's all about finding that sweet spot between downforce and drag. So essentially, a more flexible wing can adapt to different speeds and corners, which gives them more grip and potentially a serious edge over McLaren.
So are we about to witness a full-on front wing war here? This
Yeah.
is juicy. I mean, this new wing could be their secret weapon, right?
Yeah.
Especially with someone like Leclerc who can really, push it to the limit.
Yeah, exactly. If they can really leverage it effectively, they might just be able to, to snatch that pole position from McLaren. It's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out in qualifying.
Talk about a plot twist.
Yeah.
But hold on a second. What is going on with Red Bull? They are usually so dominant, and yet here they are, practically limping through practice.
Yeah, it's been a head scratcher for sure. This track seems to be exposing some weaknesses in the RB20, especially that stiff setup, so that bumpy surface and lack of grip are really hurting them, especially Verstappen.
He looked genuinely frustrated out there. And, it's not often you see him struggling to even make the top 10. So what's the word on the street?
Oh.
Any whispers from the Red Bull garage?
Well, the engineers are definitely working overtime, that's for sure. It seems like they maybe underestimated the impact of those bumps, and they haven't quite found that optimal setup yet. And honestly, I think Verstappen's aggressive driving style, which usually gives him an edge, I think it's actually making things worse here.
So it's like a perfect storm of bad luck and maybe a couple wrong calls on the setup.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Ouch. But what about Perez? I mean, he seemed to be handling things a bit better than Verstappen.
Yeah, Perez is proving why he's considered a master of street circuits. He's more adaptable. He can adjust his driving style to sort of compensate for the car's limitations. So while Verstappen's wrestling with the car, Perez is smooth and consistent. He's just squeezing every ounce of performance out of it.
It makes you wonder, could this be his chance to finally step out of Verstappen's shadow?
It very well could be.
This is getting more interesting than we thought.
It really is. And let's not forget about some of the other teams that are punching above their weight this weekend. Williams, for example, has been consistently strong. You've got Albon putting in some seriously impressive lap times.
Yeah, Albon, his performance has been amazing. It's so good to see them back in the mix. And we got to mention AlphaTauri. They're having a resurgence. Tsunoda's looking quick. And then there's Ricciardo back in the points. Did anyone see that coming?
It's a remarkable turnaround for them, and it just speaks to their ability to really adapt and develop the car throughout a season. I think Ricciardo coming back has really injected some much-needed energy into that team, and his experience is definitely paying off.
And then there's Colapinto in that Williams. What a ride he is having. Like, he's had these brilliant moments, that close shave through turn 19, sparks flying, but then he drives into the Alpine pit lane. It's almost endearing.
Yeah, total rookie mistake, but one that just kind of underscores how much pressure these drivers are under, especially on a track as demanding as Singapore. But even with those minor hiccups, he's just showing incredible pace and bravery.
Speaking of pressure, qualifying is going to be absolutely nail-biting because this track is all about precision. Even the smallest error can mean throwing away a potential front row start. It's easy to get caught up in the battle at the front, but those midfield qualifying scraps,
Oh, intense.
they are going to be so intense because
Right.
one tiny error and you are starting way down the order.
Oh, absolutely. And with so many teams at such a similar level this weekend, it's going to be a real fight for those points paying positions right from the start of Q1 all the way to those dying moments of Q3.
Okay. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's do a quick recap for everyone listening at home, getting their strategy notebooks ready.
Right. So at the top, we've got ourselves a proper battle brewing. McLaren, despite that mini DRS drama, are looking strong. Norris is on fire. Piastri is a proven race winner, and this track really seems to suit that car.
But Ferrari are breathing down their necks, Leclerc loves a street fight, and that new flexible front wing could be a real ace up their sleeves, so they might not be leading the pack right now, but
I would not count them out.
no, absolutely not. And then there's the Red Bull mystery. Can they pull off this miracle turnaround in time for qualifying, or are we going to see them, fighting for a podium place instead of their usual dominance?
The pressure is definitely on for them to find some answers, and fast.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how Verstappen handles it as well. And, maybe, just maybe, this is the weekend that Perez finally outshines his teammate.
It's possible, and let's not forget about the underdogs in all of this. Williams, Albon is looking like a serious contender out there, AlphaTauri, especially with Ricciardo back in that second seat. I mean, they could be a real threat for points. The Singapore Grand Prix is wide open.
It is anyone's game, which is why it's so exciting for us. And you know what? As you're watching qualifying, here's something I want you to think about. If these unexpected trends continue, could we be watching a power shift happening in Formula One right before our very eyes?
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? This race could have huge implications on the championship battle, not just for the drivers, but for the teams as well.
It just goes to show that in Formula One, you can never, ever count anyone out. And that, my friend, is why we love it.